Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro announced the establishment of a special anti-terrorist force. The coronavirus is continuing to spread in Europe, where Italy has seen the greatest number of cases. Reports are just in of Turkish attacks on the Syrian province of Idlib in response to an airstrike that killed at least 24 Turkish soldiers. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Katrina Goss. We begin in Venezuela, where the government announced the establishment of a special anti-terrorist force. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro reported the launching of this new special task force, which will have the necessary firepower and operational capabilities to defend the country. This force will be tasked with dismantling all terrorist groups sent by Colombia and the United States. The decision was taken after President Maduro was briefed on efforts by sectors of the far right to restructure organized crime in the country. And continuing in Venezuela, thousands marched in Caracas on Thursday to commemorate the 31st anniversary of the Caracazo uprising. The march, titled The World Against Neoliberalism, was convened by the United Socialist Party of Venezuela and supported by social and political movements. This Thursday also saw global mobilizations in solidarity with Venezuela and rejecting the unilateral sanctions of the US government against the Bolivarian nation. February 27th marks Venezuela's Day of Respect for Human Rights, coinciding with the anniversary of the Caracazo uprising of 1989, when residents of Caracas took to the streets to protest against a package of neoliberal measures adopted by the government of Carlos Andrés Pérez. The ensuing demonstrations, rioting and looting were met with heavy repression by state security forces, leaving thousands dead. And in its 2019 report on Colombia, the UN stressed a lack of security guarantees and an increase in violence against human rights defenders in the South American country. The report makes recommendations regarding access to justice and the transformation of the Colombian police mobile anti-disturbances squadron, accused of excessive use of force during recent social protests. The UN Human Rights Office urged the Colombian government to initiate further, effective and independent investigations into these cases. The report also stresses the need for a comprehensive programme of guarantees for women social leaders and human rights defenders as an important tool for prevention and protection against assassinations and attacks. More than 100 human rights defenders and 66 indigenous people were killed in Colombia last year. Critics have slammed President Ivan Duque for not doing enough to stop the violence. And turning to Bolivia now, the de facto authorities continue their persecution against political and social leaders. Felipa Huanca, former leader of the Bartolina Sisa National Confederation of Campesino, Indigenous and Native Women of Bolivia, announced her illegal detention and solitary confinement in police cells in La Paz. Authorities justified her detention on the grounds of her participation in a Congress of Rural Women in Mexico. Heavy rains are wreaking havoc in various Latin American countries. Colombia remains in a state of emergency after strong floods due to intense rains in the Andean region of the country. Authorities have reported 8 deaths and at least 14 people missing. The cities of Bogotá and Santander are the worst affected. In Ecuador, the National Meteorology Institute reported that rainfall will continue in the coastal Andean and Amazon regions. Heavy rains have flooded various areas of the city of Guayaquil. Meanwhile, thunderstorms prompted the suspension of airport operations as well as power outages. The intense downpours have also left thousands of victims and damages in Peru and Bolivia, where at least 18 people have been killed and more than 11,000 have seen their homes damaged. The Dominican Republic saw a massive demonstration this Thursday calling for respect for democracy as the country celebrated 176 years of its independence. The march was held on the same day that Dominican President Danilo Medina offered the last State of the Nation address of his second and final term before Congress. The country has been experiencing a political crisis in the wake of the suspended municipal elections of February 16th. Meanwhile, political activists and trade unions have demanded Medina resign over threats to deepen budget cuts that have negatively impacted the Dominican population. And preparations continue in Guyana for the March 2nd general and regional elections. Government Commissioner Vincent Alexander stated that measures are being taken to guarantee free and fair elections. The Guyana Elections Commission has met to iron out certain issues, he reported, including matters raised by the opposition regarding the reduction in the use of private residences as polling stations in the upcoming vote. And just days before Guyana's head to the polls, the country's political parties are racing to secure votes. General Secretary of the People's Progressive Party, Barak Jagdeo, has expressed strong condemnation of the decision by the Elections Commission to reduce the use of private residences as polling stations and instead use public buildings. The Elections Commission chairman reported that this decision is in keeping with recommendations from the Carter Centre following allegations of voter suppression by the opposition. Meanwhile, President David Granger has urged thousands of supporters of the ruling A Partnership for National Unity Alliance for Change to go out and vote next Monday to ensure the dark days under the previous administration are not repeated. And turning to Dominica, Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit has hailed the 2020 Carnival celebrations as very successful and peaceful. In a statement on Wednesday, Skerrit commended the organisers of the 2020 Carnival, as well as the bands, artists and everyone who had a part to play in this year's celebrations. Police noted that the festivities were very peaceful, with just a few minor incidents reported. According to the Prime Minister, such success was due to respect for law and order. Skerrit noted even more colour and creativity in this year's parades. He also called to organise various village carnivals in the future and include them as part of the national calendar of events. And after this break, Turkey has launched attacks against Syrian army positions. Stay with us for more. Welcome back. Turkey has attacked all known Syrian government targets after the death of at least 24 Turkish troops in Idlib. Reports are that at least 29 Turkish servicemen were killed in an airstrike in Syria's Idlib province, while an unspecified number were injured. Turkish officials attributed the strike to the Syrian army. The reports came amid a high-level Turkish security meeting, reportedly chaired by President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and presumably focused on the incident. Unverified reports emerged on social media on Thursday, claiming that dozens of Turkish troops were killed in a Russian airstrike and that dozens more were injured, while hospitals in Hatay were struggling to cope with the influx of the wounded. None of this has so far been confirmed by Ankara. And turning to Africa now, the African Union said on Thursday they expected to send a temporary deployment of 3,000 troops to West Africa's Sahel region, where regional forces have been struggling to respond to insurgency by armed Islamists for nearly 8 years. The decision was made at the African Union Summit earlier this month, according to Smail Chergi, head of the AU's Peace and Security Commission, but was not officially announced until a press conference on Thursday. A localised rebellion that began in northern Mali in 2012 has spread to the centre of the country and to neighbouring Burkina Faso and Niger. Around 4,000 people were killed in the three countries last year, a five-fold increase over 2016, according to UN figures.
Yeah, my name is Robbie.
A Yemeni security official has accused the United States of intentionally destroying the country's air defense systems during the reign of former Yemeni President Ali Abdullah Saleh in preparation for a later intervention in the country. The security official revealed in a statement that Yemen's air defense systems were dismantled due to pressures exerted against the government of Saleh by top US officials over a period of several years. The statement added that destruction of the system came under the pretext of US fears that al-Qaeda elements might seize and use the system to attack civilian airports. The official concluded that 1,263 air defense missiles, as well as 103 batteries of the Yemeni army, were destroyed under an agreement signed between the United States and the former Yemeni government. Tunisia's new government secured a parliamentary vote of confidence on Thursday after more than 4 months of political instability since the elections. Former Finance Minister Elis Faik was named Prime Minister designate by Tunisia's President Kais Saied at the end of January and tasked with forming a government within a month. The previous cabinet he put forward was rejected by the Islamist-inspired Ennahda Movement party, which won the most seats in October's legislative elections, but fell far short of a majority in the assembly. Faik's revised line-up secured 129 votes in favour and 77 against after a debate which started on Wednesday and lasted more than 14 hours. Umaro Sissoko Embalo swore himself in as the new president of Guinea-Bissau on Thursday, despite an ongoing dispute over the December 29th election results. The inauguration ceremony took place despite a continuing legal and political battle over the official results. The African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde of defeated candidate Domingos Simões Pereira filed a lawsuit with the Supreme Court, which issued rulings requiring a check of the vote tally sheets. However, this has failed to resolve the dispute, and a row has arisen between the Swiss Supreme Court and the Electoral Commission. On Tuesday, the Commission confirmed the results that it had previously announced, while the PAIGC party stood by its objections. At least 24 babies and pregnant teens have been freed from what has been termed a baby factory in Nigeria. Nigerian police rescued the babies and 4 expectant mothers from an illegal maternity home in the southern city of Port Harcourt, a spokesman said on Thursday. He noted that the victims were frail and malnourished and had been hospitalised, while investigations were ongoing to find those responsible. Police raids on illegal maternity homes dubbed baby factories have become relatively common in Nigeria, especially in the south. Baby boys are typically sold for over $1,000, while girls fetch around $800, according to the Nigerian police. Oil-rich Nigeria boasts one of Africa's largest economies, but has the highest rate of extreme poverty in the world. Opposition parties in the East African nation of Burundi are accusing authorities of intimidating, arresting and murdering their members ahead of the May presidential elections. Police on Tuesday said they had killed 22 evildoers near the country's economic capital, Bujumbura, accusing the group of taking advantage of the electoral period to cause trouble. On Saturday, the main opposition party, the National Council for Liberty, condemned what it described as a wave of arrests of its political leaders. The previous presidential election in 2015 was plagued by deadly protests against President Pierre Nkurunziza's ultimately successful bid to win another term in office. However, he has said he will not run again this time round. CNL leader Agathon Rasa is considered the main rival to the candidate of the ruling party, Evariste Ndayishimiye, in the upcoming election. And finally, donkey slaughter will be halted in Kenya, following concerns over the rise in the theft of the animals for export and the impact on rural families that rely on them. According to Peter Munja, Cabinet Secretary for the Agriculture Ministry, the ban is necessary because rampant slaughtering of donkeys has led to job losses in places where they are a centrepiece of everyday life. Donkeys often represent an essential lifeline for farmers who use them for transport, domestic work and milk. Donkey populations globally are under serious threat due to the demand for their hides, which are used in traditional Chinese medicine, according to a 2019 report by the Donkey Sanctuary, a UK-based charity. And after this final break, we have more on the spread of the coronavirus. Don't go away. Welcome back. The novel coronavirus in China could be brought under control by late April as the country continues to see a decline in the death toll from the epidemic, according to a Chinese expert speaking on Thursday. Speaking at a press conference in Jiangsu City, South China, renowned Chinese respiratory expert Song Nashan said that he's confident in the prevention and control measures that have been adopted and stands by the predictions made by his team. The COVID-19 virus has now infected around 82,000 and resulted in 2,800 deaths. The virus has now spread to at least 47 nations, with the United States and Germany reporting the first cases with no obvious source of transmission. And meanwhile, the number of coronavirus cases in Spain has risen from 14 to 23. On Thursday, 2 new cases were reported in Madrid. One of them, a 77-year-old man, is hospitalized in a serious condition. The country's health authorities have not ruled out a case of local contagion since neither of the patients had traveled abroad. Other cases were detected in Valencia, Barcelona, Segovia and Valladolid. Meanwhile, in Italy, the National Civil Protection Service has confirmed that 3 more people have died there, bringing the death toll to 17. The number of confirmed cases in Italy has increased to 650. The largest numbers have been registered in the northern regions of Lombardy and Veneto. And the top European stock exchanges closed this Thursday with losses above 3% in the midst of fears surrounding the spread of the coronavirus. European markets are set to close their worst week in recent years. This Thursday, the CAC 40 French stock market index saw losses of 3.69%, while the German DAX fell by 3.5%, and the FTSE MIB in Milan nosedived by 3.1%. Panic regarding the economic impact of the spread of the COVID-19 virus is believed to have fueled the losses in the major European stock exchanges over the past week, despite a slight improvement on Wednesday. Trinidad and Tobago has announced further travel restrictions in response to the threat of the COVID-19 virus. Travellers from Iran, Italy, Japan and Singapore will be denied entry to the country for 14 days, according to Health Minister Terence Dale Singh at a post-cabinet press briefing on Thursday. The same measure has already been applied to travellers from China. The minister assured that the nation is ready to deal with the coronavirus should it reach its shores. Among the plans in place in case of an outbreak are an additional 20 beds at the Cora Hospital and 67 at St James Hospital, while an unused building of Port of Spain General Hospital will also be used to treat patients if necessary. And Saudi Arabia temporarily suspended entry for individuals seeking to undertake the Umrah pilgrimage to Mecca or visit the Prophet's Mosque in Medina, as well as tourists travelling from countries where the coronavirus poses a risk, as determined by the kingdom's health authorities. The new measures seek to prevent the emergence of the coronavirus in Saudi Arabia, according to a statement shared on Twitter by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. These measures come at a time when there has been a sharp increase in the number of cases reported in the Middle East, where most of the individuals infected had visited Iran, which has reported a death toll of 19, the highest outside of China. And we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Katrina Goss. Thank you for watching.